Hello, everybody, and welcome in to the 22nd edition of Texas Longhorns here live. I'm your host, Matthew Miller. I really appreciate you guys being here today. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below as it's coming across at the bottom of the screen. I'm here every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm here for any breaking news, and I'm also here for recruiting updates and recruiting news when they do come down the pipeline. So please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps out with what we're trying to build here on this network of the Voice of College Football. So please do that for me if you will. Also, if you're going to use Amazon, why not support a small business like Mark? The Amazon link is in the description. Does not change your buying experience. Does not cost you any money. Doesn't cost anyone any money. All it does is put a little bit of change in Mark's pocket from Amazon. So I guess it does cost Amazon a little bit of money, but they're making so much money, guys. It makes no difference to them, but it does help out Mark a lot. I really appreciate you guys doing that. Also, Mark has a college football show every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time throughout the college football season. The offseason is yet to be determined, but we are not in the offseason, thank God, because that was long. So go over there and check that out as well, guys. And if you don't want to see my face, but you want to hear my voice and hear this content, go to your favorite audio platform, type in the Voice of College Football. You will see Iowa, Texas, USC, whatever your favorite team is, you will see it there. You can hear my voice. You don't have to look at my face if that's more of your vibe there. So please go over there and do that, whether it's Apple, Spotify, or some other streaming platform. We probably got it for you over there. So please go check that out as well. Let's jump into things. Texas had a great game last Saturday. What? Who can tell? But Texas kills Louisiana Monroe, and Arch Manning's first start ever. I think what the tweet was that it was on the anniversary of Archie Manning, his grandfather's first start, like 56 or 58 years ago. So that was pretty cool nugget. Quinn Ewers also made his first start versus Louisiana Monroe, and his first drive versus Louisiana Monroe for Quinn Ewers was an interception. The first drive for Arch Manning was an interception. Deja vu, simulation, whatever you want to call it, it was happening on Saturday with the Texas Longhorns because they got a dub when they played Louisiana Monroe a couple years ago. They got a dub again. Arch Manning overall, 15 of 29, 258 yards, 8.9 yards per attempt, which is a good number. That's a number you would like to see when he does become the starting quarterback. That's actually a really good number. And what I thought was very interesting with this game was the amount of deep shots. According to anyone that keeps stats trackers, you can look this up. 10 passes for over 20 yards for the Texas Longhorns through the air. That is the most of the Steve Sarkisian era. And it kind of puzzles me because you go into a game like Louisiana Monroe, you probably don't need to hit those deep shots. You can probably nickel and weight your dime down the field and score versus a team like Louisiana Monroe. So it's quite surprising that they did do that. But I think it was to put it on tape. I think Steve Sarkisian at this point in the season knows what he has, and he wants other teams to see it as well. So now they are forced to cover the deep portion of the field. We have yet to really exploit that versus any team. And does that have to do with the defenses we have faced? Absolutely. They're playing so they don't get burnt deep. Louisiana Monroe's safeties did struggle mightily in this game, obviously, and Steve Sarkisian came in and probably saw that on tape and was like, you know what, we haven't put it on tape yet. Let's go for it. He did say after the game he wished he would have got Arch some more easy completions, which makes sense because a young guy, you want him to get easy completions, get his confidence going, get his momentum going. And it's kind of like a boulder rolling downhill, guys. Once a guy like that gets in rhythm, he's super talented with little experience, but if he has the confidence going, you can see him play really well throughout the game. And I kind of agree with Sark there in the aftermath of the game. And that's another reason I love Steve Sarkisian. He dissects himself after every game, just like he dissects the team, as you should. As a coach, you should be the first one to look in the mirror and look at yourself and then go look at your team. And that's something he wished he would have got. What I love from Sark in this game, though, is getting Jaden Blue the confidence back. Jaden Blue coming into the season was going to be 1B to CJ Baxter. And I think the confidence started going with him. You saw the injuries and lack of success early on. He had a good game versus Michigan, but that was out of the backfield catching the ball, not running. You saw he wanted to get him involved in the running game, and you saw that tremendous game from Jaden Blue. 25 carries, 124 yards, 5 yards per carry, and 3 touchdowns on the ground. He also added 1 through the air as well. So a really good game for Jaden Blue. Obviously, we can know what he does out of the backfield, especially catching the ball. But I think this confidence was to get back rushing-wise, and I think he got it back. And you heard him today actually say, or Steve Sarkisian said, that he thought he could have played a better game. And I actually agree. There were some holes he did miss in this game, but it's not a big deal versus Louisiana Monroe. You obviously want to see him hit those holes in the bigger games coming up. And that is one thing I want to see from Texas. The running game, and when we get into the Mississippi State breakdown, I'll have Texas stats as well, has not been up to snuff. To win a national championship, it has to take just a small step forward. It doesn't have to be great because the pass game right now is elite. And if it stays that way, we'll be fine. But the running game does have to be better under Texas. That's like the one thing left for this Texas offense. The one thing left for the defense is I want to see them versus a good quarterback. But other than that, so far, so good. Colin Page, the walk-on, added 10 carries for 60 yards as well, so he looked pretty good. I've actually been quite impressed with him. He's been pretty good. Honestly, if I'm him, I'd probably transfer out, go to a smaller school and get some reps because he's good enough to play at a Division I level. Not at a Division I school like Texas, but could he play for like UTSA? Absolutely he could. I fully believe he'd be in the rotation heavily at UTSA right now if he was there. Jared Gibson had his worst performance as a Longhorn, 9 carries for 32 yards. He did have a touchdown, though, and his ankle, I guess, is nicked up. That is something of concern, but he'll play. He'll tough it out. And this is a game, honestly, he could sit out. We'd be fine. Colin Page could do well in this game versus Mississippi State, but I would like to get some real reps before we go and play Oklahoma. Whether you guys hate Oklahoma like I do, which I'm sure you do since you're a Texas fan and you're watching the Texas channel, Oklahoma does have a very good defense. I said that in the offseason. I was questioning their offense mostly, and you saw that's turned out so far. Before we get into the receiving of this game, let's jump into your comments. Yes, Jackson, thank you. That is the link there for the Amazon link in the description. I really appreciate you guys are dropping that, Jackson. Let's get back into the recap. So receiving-wise, Isaiah Bond, 2 receptions for 75 yards. Matthew Golden, 1 reception for 46 yards on a big deep shot by for Arch Manning down the middle there. Mr. Reliable, definitely. He's been that way since I said he was on campus when he got here. He was going to be the most reliable wide receiver. That's turned out to be the case so far. I don't think he's dropped the pass yet. Ryan Wingo, 2 receptions for 42 yards and a touchdown. Silas Bolden had his best game and got the most playing time he's had this year. 3 receptions for 37 yards for him. So far for Silas Bolden, that was definitely his best game. Now, the question is, and he was involved the most. The question for me, for the coaching staff would be, I would have asked this if I was a reporter there, is this because you played Louisiana Monroe, or do you plan on upping his reps and upping his production week in and week out? I do not know, because up until this game, he really wasn't getting that many snaps at wide receiver, and he really wasn't having that much production. So that's a question I have for Steve Sarkisian. I don't think you'll get the answer this week because you're playing Mississippi State. No offense to Mississippi State. Mississippi State's in the ballpark with everyone we played this year other than Michigan. They're in the Colorado State ballpark. They're in the Louisiana Monroe ballpark. They're in the UTSA ballpark. They're not a good football team. We should kill them. And again, when we get to that, we'll talk about it. Defense. I thought the linebackers, and specifically, I said after the game, Anthony Hill had his best game at Texas, in my opinion, and definitely the best game on the season. Well, guess what? My eyes do not lie, because Pro Football Focus said the same thing. They said they had him ranked as the #1 rated linebacker in all of America for last week's game versus Louisiana Monroe. So he had a really good game. Also, next in line, Leona Lafau had his best game as a Longhorn. 6 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1 sack, and a safety was the 1 sack. So overall, really good. I've been very impressed by him. I'm fully confident. Like, him and Anthony Hill next year is going to be one hell of a duo. Just a little sneak peek next year, guys. I think our defense is going to be a top 10 defense in the country. You have Anthony Hill and Leona Lafau at linebacker. You have Colin Simmons off the edge, and honestly, Trey Moore, with the type of season he's having, might come back, because I think he's probably like a 3rd or 4th round pick. He could up his status even more in the draft. Same with Ethan Burke. And then the guys in the secondary, Taff, Muhammad, Phil Simi will be playing at that point. Derek Williams. I mean, this is going to be a legit nasty defense next year. It's already really good. Like I said, I think it was going to be between a 25 and 35th best defense in the country. I think that's about what it is right now. Maybe even better, honestly. And that's good enough to win a national championship with the offense we have. And I think it's only going to get better next year. Some crazy stats. I already said the 10 passes over 20 yards, which was the most Texas has had under the Steve Sarkisian era. Texas only gave up 10 yards of offense for Louisiana Monroe in the second half. They gave up 10 yards, guys. I do not care who you're playing. I don't care if I got 11 guys from my neighborhood to go out there and play football versus Texas. 10 yards is insane in a half. 10 yards is insane. Louisiana Monroe actually had negative yards in the third quarter. Let me say this. A Division I football team had negative yards in the third quarter on offense. That is phenomenal defense by Texas. Absolutely astounding defense by Texas. Whatever word you want to use, that's what it was. It was phenomenal. And then in the fourth quarter, obviously they let up and allowed what? So they allowed negative yards. They had like 12 or 13 yards in the fourth quarter. So they let us down a little bit in the fourth quarter. But overall, phenomenal performance from the Longhorns. They did exactly what they had to do. And that's what we like to see in these type of games. To me, when you go back and look at national championship teams, which I think Texas has elevated themselves into that category, you want to see dominance over teams that are inferior. And so far, you have seen that. Texas has covered every spread they have had this year so far, which is phenomenal. And hats off to Steve Sarkisian and the staff to get these guys prepared each and every week and not to take the rat poison. So kudos to you guys. Took them to you guys. Texas dominates Louisiana Monroe. Again, guys, can you please hit that like button? Please subscribe down below. We are done with the Louisiana Monroe recap. We will talk recruiting in a second. But again, hit the like button, subscribe, share it out with your friends, family, whoever it may be, your churchgoers, your non-churchgoers, people at the gym. Hey, have you watched Texas football today? Watch it with this guy, Matthew Miller. So please, I really appreciate you guys being here. And again, go over and use that Amazon link. Jackson has been generous enough to put that in the comments. Does not cost you money. It is free. Puts a little bit of change in Mark's pockets. Takes a little bit out of Amazon pockets. Again, if you like hearing my voice but don't like looking at my face, catch us on the audio platform, whatever it may be, Spotify, Apple, Amazon. We have an Indonesian one. We have a Belgium listener out there. So I appreciate you, brother, keeping it real over there in Europe. Please hit that like button, subscribe over there as well if you can find the video format and want to watch it instead. Also, College Football Show with Mark Rogers at the Voice of College Football. Monday through Friday during the season, 10 a.m. Eastern time. He will take your calls, comments, concerns, super chats. Thank you guys for going over there and doing that as well. Next up, recruiting update. And it is upon us, guys. Georgia is actually going to be one of the biggest recruiting weekends in the history of Texas football. And let me say that again, in the history. I am not stuttering when I say that. It is going to be a gigantic weekend. You're going to have guys from 26, 27, 25. You're going to have probably over 50 guys at the Georgia game. It is important on the field. It is very important off the field. Guys, whether you want to believe it or not, recruiting helps you and is the majority of the reason why these teams win national championships. You have to recruit, in my opinion, at a top 7 level. That's basically the cutoff of every other team you've seen. You want to push it back a little bit. There's been teams like Clemson and Michigan who have recruited in the top 12 level, but then they bring in that guy at quarterback. If you don't have that guy at quarterback, Jake Coker, for example, at Alabama, you have to recruit at an elite level. So let's talk about Texas, which is currently recruiting at that elite level. They are number 5 in the country currently, number 6 according to some. They have plenty of recruits committed already. And let's jump into guys that are going to be visiting for Mississippi State and also other weeks. Javion Hilson, who is uncommitted at the edge position, is coming in to visit Texas. This is a guy Texas has been trying to get on campus for a long time. He was committed to Florida State, recently decommitted about a month ago, I believe. To me, he is a Texas lean. Let's put it this way. I already have a thumbnail for him committing to Texas. He says he wants to have 5 visits lined up. Texas is one of those visits. I'm not sure of the other 4 at this moment, but it came down to Florida State and Texas last time before he decommitted from Florida State. So I fully expect Texas to be in the driver's seat here. In my opinion, this is a battle Texas should win. He would be a welcome sight for us on the 40 acres here for Texas. He's a 4-star, 32nd player in the country and number 2 edge in this 2025 class. Tremendous player. If you get Lance Jackson, Josiah Sharma, Myron Charles, Javion Hilson, Smith Orogbo, that is a hell of a defensive line class. We've talked about that. It could end up being the best defensive line class in the country right now. Right now, I'd have to go with Georgia in that aspect. But Javion Hilson is expected to visit this weekend versus Mississippi State. I think there's a really good chance he commits to Texas this weekend, and I will be here to break it down for you. So like and subscribe. Also, Michael Terry III is expected to visit October 19th for the Georgia game. Like I said, big weekend for Texas on and off the field. He is a high 4-star recruit on 247. I use 247 composite, and he's a high 4-star there on 247 itself. He's a 5-star. I forget what service is lacking behind. Most likely it's ESPN. ESPN is a trash recruiting service. You should not use them if you're going to use just one site. He is the number 1 athlete, no matter where you look, 35th player nationally, according to the composite. And this is a guy, to me, guys, we see what Juan Davis is doing at the H-back position. This is a guy that can take it to the next level. This is a guy that can line up at tight end, play the gunner helm role. This is a guy that can line up at H-back, play the Juan Davis role. This is a guy that can line up at wide receiver. This is a guy that's being recruited to Oregon as a running back. So this is a guy that can do almost anything on the football field offensively. Hell, I think he could probably be a decent defender as well if he wanted to be. He does want to play wide receiver. That has been made known. I think right now, if I had to rank where I think he goes, I think Texas is 1, I think Nebraska is 2, and I think Oregon is 3. And they were wider a couple weeks ago when we talked about this than they are now, or further back, than they were a couple weeks ago. They were further back a couple weeks ago than they were now, or are now. Getting tongue twisted over here. And I think they have made up some ground there. I think Nebraska honestly has the best pitch right now because, which hurts to say, but I do still think Texas leads, but Nebraska could make up for it. They have a lot of NIL money they're willing to spend, and they want a wide receiver, and they need wide receivers. No offense to Isaiah Nayer. I like Isaiah Nayer, but coming off multiple injuries at Texas and Wyoming, he's lost a step. He has. And I think Michael Terry can come in there and be wide receiver 1 or 2 right away, get really good money, I can't say anything bad about Nebraska. They packed the stadium. They're starting to win now. They're recruiting well. So, and you get to play with Dylan Raiola. So to me, I would worry more about Nebraska here than Oregon. Oregon pitching running back is weird to me. I think it's a bad fit. And I think I love Texas's pitch of just come here and be a weapon. We'll use you in whatever way you want, but you're going to be a weapon here. You're going to play all different positions. You're going to get the football. You're going to be involved in the game plan early on. So Michael Terry is visiting October 19th. I think you could see him commit there as well. 4-star wide receiver Kelshawn Johnson, who is currently committed to Texas A&M. He is visiting October 19th for the Georgia game as well. This is a guy I could definitely see flip to Texas. Kelshawn Johnson fits in that mold of what we need right now at wide receiver. You have Jamie French. You have Khalil Lockett. Khalil Lockett is more of the go up, get the ball from you threat. Jamie French is more open space, can make you miss threat. Kelshawn Johnson is pure speedster. That is what we need right now in this class if we do hold on to Khalil Lockett and Jamie French. Kelshawn Johnson is what we're missing. We need that speedster wide receiver. And let's be honest here. Texas A&M, where I think they are headed, I think Connor Wegman actually gives you a better chance to keep Kelshawn Johnson. I think Marcel Reed's going to hurt your chance because you're going to run the football more. Now, Mike Elko's doing what he has to do. I think Marcel Reed gives you a better opportunity to win football games. But I think Kelshawn Johnson is going to look at it and say, why would I want to go there and run block, be kind of a gimmicky wide receiver, use me in the reverse in a sweep type or a jet sweep type game, reverses, stuff like that. That's what you're going to see when they are getting the wide receivers involved. You're not going to have many deep shots, in my opinion. And if you do, it's not going to be very often. So I think Kelshawn Johnson will look at that and maybe like, I can get early playing time, but I'll be used weird. That could hurt my NFL stock. I'll probably get less playing time at Texas, but my NFL stock will go up. It's going to be honestly what he wants. If he wants early playing time, wants to play right away, and he thinks he can just basically he's too good for or he's really good and he can overcome the scheme, then we'll go to A&M. If he's willing to sit, play less reps, but be probably drafted higher, he'll come to Texas. So it's going to be very interesting. And that's crazy that I get to say that because I didn't used to be able to say that. But I think this is a good flip guy. I think there's a really high possibility. And when I'm saying all these guys' names, I think there's a really high chance they come to Texas. I'm not going to waste my time on a Decorium Moore right now when there's nothing to me that says he will flip from Oregon. Madden Ferramo. I said last week, and it is now being widely reported, USC is going to be the bigger player over Notre Dame. And I'll tell you right now, USC has that connection with Samoan players, Islanders, and also they really need help on the defensive side of the ball with a run thumper at the linebacker position. We just saw what Michigan did to USC. Madden Ferramo would really help USC in the run game right away as a freshman. The guy's 6'3", 230 as a freshman. You put him in a college program, he's going to be 240 plus. When he gets on camp. Well, he'll probably be 240 as a freshman after conditioning and everything. So I think right now it used to be Notre Dame was leading, then he got on Texas campus and he really loved the visit, and that's why he pushed back his commitment and he could have been at Notre Dame already. I think right now, honestly, it's Texas, USC, and then Notre Dame has fallen to 3 here. Johnny Nansen obviously has a fantastic relationship with him. He's working that angle. And we'll see if that resonates with Madden Ferramo. I really respect the way Madden Ferramo has handled this. He's coming this with an open mind. He came to Texas thinking, I'm going to go to Notre Dame. It blew him away. He loved it. So he's like, you know what? I really have to rethink. And now USC's coming heavy and ready to go. And it's going to be interesting how this turns out. I honestly think if Texas continues to win, and I think USC ends up winning probably 8 or 9 games, I think he ends up at Texas. Now, if USC is able to turn this around, and I'm not even going to say turn around, they played a I always thought Michigan was a good football team. I said it after we beat them. They're still a college football playoff contender. But if USC is able to be a college football playoff contender and end up in the top 15 in the country, I think it makes it even. Because I do think if everything's even, guys, he will end up at USC. I just see him in the USC uniform. It's the old uniform test. Can you imagine this guy in this uniform and this uniform? I think he ends up at USC. If they end up winning 10 games, I think he goes to USC. Now, if they end up winning 8, and we end up in the national championship, I think he ends up at Texas. But right now, I would give Texas the slight advantage here with USC at number 2. A guy that we were kind of late on, but we've been trending well for it, Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng from Bradenton, Florida, from IMG Academy, that factory of NFL players down there, 4-star linebacker, 75th in the nation. He's more of your sideline to sideline guy where Madden Framo's north and south hits you downhill. This guy can run sideline to sideline. He's a burner. He's a really good player. I'm excited we offered him. I don't know what took so long, but I think we have a little bit of catching up. He was just at Michigan this last weekend. Thoroughly enjoyed his visit. We have a Michigan channel. TJ said he really liked his visit. He is uncommitted, and he has an official visit to Texas on October 19th. I think he would be a fantastic addition to this linebacker room with Jonathan Cunningham. That would get you your 2 guys that can run sideline to sideline. That's why I love Madden Framo as well, because then you get your thumper. If you have your thumper plus these 2 guys with Jonathan Cunningham, and then hopefully Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng plus Elijah Barnes. I mean, that's, guys, we were just talking about possibly the best defensive line in the class. If we land some of these guys, this could be the best linebacker room. If we get Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, Madden Framo, Jonathan Cunningham, and Elijah Barnes, that is insane. That is an insane haul for Texas at the linebacker room. And then a guy that we talked about last time that I said, hey, he was kind of spurned by Texas. He went to A&M, and that's Chase Sims. Texas is starting to heat up there, guys. There's a real chance he flips to Texas. He visits this week for Mississippi State as well. I may have to jump on live, or hopefully he does it after the game, because I will be here for postgame, and I can just go into that with Chase Sims, because Chase Sims may flip from A&M. He wanted to come to Texas. Texas did not give him really the time of day. And I was worried that would come back to haunt Texas, but he seems to be very open to coming into Texas, and that is good for Texas. And anytime you get someone on campus, they do a fantastic job of pitching when they are on campus. So there's a real chance Chase Sims comes. He's a 3-star, but he's 6'2.5", 305. He's a big guy. That's what you look for on both the offensive and defensive line, is the big, like Kyle Flood said, big humans. So it's going to be very interesting if Chase Sims does flip to Texas after coming for this weekend for a visit. It's awesome that we're getting him on campus. Next up, we have Kevin Wynn. If you remember, this guy visited in the offseason. He's the guy that wanted to become a culinary chef. Texas took him around to multiple different restaurants in the Austin area. He's committed to Florida State currently, but he plans to be on campus. And plans, that's a very dangerous word. We need to get him on campus. Just like Chase Sims, getting him on campus is the biggest thing. If we get him here, guys, I trust this staff to close. So when these guys do plan a visit, whether that's other guys I'm not going to talk about today, I will be here for you and let you know, hey, if they're coming to Texas, there's a really good chance this staff can either get him committed or flip him. And I think there's a chance for Kevin Wynn if he does get on campus. I will say this, and I think this is very important. When he visited, his parents did not come with him. Texas wants to get the parents involved, which makes complete sense. If you can get the parents on board, it's usually easier to get the kid on board. It's very hard vice versa. So I think it's going to be interesting. We'll see if they are able to do that. If not, that sucks, but I really hope they are able to get him on campus, especially with the parents. You saw Smith Orogbo obviously bucked that trend. He came to Texas, no parents, with him, and he only came one time and he ended up at Texas. So maybe we don't have to get him on board, but it would be nice to get him on board, because I do think it helps. And I'm going to be straight up honest here too. A guy that wants to become a chef, to me, that shows a lot of like cultural, I don't know, really good background, really good standing with the parents. Like they're very, like, honestly, they come from a good family. If you want to become a chef, like that's high aspirations. That's hard to do. So I would love to get the parents on board for this visit as well. Joseph Mbachu, 6'4.5", 275 from Georgia. We have talked about him constantly. I really think he flips to Texas. He is visiting again. He plans on visiting for the Georgia game. I believe he was already on campus for the UTSA game. He's currently committed to Florida. Guys, go watch the Mississippi State versus Florida game. Florida is terrible on the defensive line, and they have talented guys. So to me, they are not developing these guys at all. If I'm Texas, I'm throwing on that film and I'm like, this guy was a 4-star. This guy was a high 3-star. This guy was a 5-star. And look what they're doing to him. This guy's a 3-star from Georgia. Listen, man, we can turn you into something. We can get you to the NFL. Look at our defensive line. There's a couple 3-stars on our defensive line that are turning out well. There's 4-stars that are turning out well. Obviously, 5-stars should turn out well, so I wouldn't pitch them that. But Florida is not doing well there. I would just throw on tape and be like, brother, why would you want to play for them? And I do. I think he flips to Texas. I'm very high on this guy. I like him. He's a massive build, 6'4.5", 275. You can put a lot of weight on that frame still. He'd be a perfect guy to play on the inside. I think he'd play 3 or 4 technique. Honestly, he could play across the defensive line depending on how you want to mold his body, but I'm big on him. I think he'll end up being a 4-star by everything I've seen when everything's said and done. And then a guy that really just kind of crept onto the scene for Texas, Walter Mathis Jr., 3-star from Georgia, but he's committed to LSU. He's going to visit Mississippi State. So this weekend with his parents, he's never been to campus. So this is a very big first impression for Texas for a good player. Honestly, if we get Joseph Mbachu and we get some of these other guys I expect us to get, this guy kind of becomes he's not a need anymore. He's more of a like a pleasure pick, honestly. If we can get him, that'd be nice, but we don't need him. If we don't get some of these guys, then we do kind of need to get him still, because we're still a little bit thin on the inside with Myron Charles and Josiah Sharma. You would like to get 3 to 4 of those guys in the class. And guys, remember, we're going from 85 scholarships to 105. So that is big. In my opinion, I've said this, I would get lower guys like this. Like, he's a low 3-star recruit. If you can get someone like this and pay him decently well and get him in the program for 2 years and then have him start, basically stashing players on the defensive and offensive line, that would really help out Texas. And that would drive us into a new galaxy, a new universe, whatever you want to say. It would take us into a new level that we haven't seen around here in a long time. So that's how I think I would handle it. I think the staff I'm kind of seeing is handling it the same thing as well, because you're seeing more defensive line offers from this staff. So I think that's what they want to do as well. And guess what? The more guys you have, the more misses you can afford. If you have only 4 guys in your class on the defensive line, 4 or 5 guys, and you miss out on 2 of them, that's not very good. If you have 8 guys in your class and you miss out on 4 of them, then you got 4 instead of 2. So that's what I think is going to happen for Texas. I think they are prioritizing the lines of scrimmage with the extra scholarship offers. And that does it for the weekly recruiting update. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. I really appreciate you guys being here. I'm going to take a water break because I've been talking for 27 minutes straight. And then we're going to get into the Mississippi State preview and prediction. So Texas plays their first game in the SEC versus Mississippi State. They are currently, and it actually went up. I checked right before. It may have gone up or down since then, but as of about 45 minutes ago, Texas is a 38.5-point favorite for their first SEC game. The over-under is set at 61.5 points. When I saw this line, I was like, wow, that's a lot of points. But then you got to remember, Toledo beat Mississippi State by 24 points. And my early indication, I thought it was going to be like 27.5. But if Toledo beat them by 24, Texas should obviously beat them by way more. Do I think that's more of a flukish game? Like, if they played 100 times, do I think Toledo beats Mississippi State by 24 every time? No, I think the average would probably end up being Toledo wins that game by 10 points. But they still lost them. And then they got absolutely killed by, if you watch over on the SEC channel, I do videos over there as well. We actually have a live show tomorrow at 8 Eastern time. So if you want to talk SEC, check that out with my boy Tyler. I had Florida as the second worst team. I had Mississippi State as the worst team. And Florida beat them by 17 points. So that is not good for Mississippi State. 38. Yeah, I was shocked when I first saw it. It's 38.5 now. So it's even more. 38.5 is crazy. But it makes sense because we're going to get into the stats. We're going to get into some of the players. Mississippi State, I knew going into the season they were going to be bad. I don't know why, because I said this, like, roster-wise. I said Mississippi State has the worst roster in the SEC. I still put Vanderbilt to finish last, which isn't going to be true. It's going to be Mississippi State. I had Mississippi State as my second worst team, so I wasn't that far off. But I should have put them as my worst. I don't know why I didn't. There's that, and I'm trying to think if there was a team I was too high on. I guess LSU was slightly too high on. I'm at 9-3. But that's really it. I think I did pretty well on my SEC predictions. But let's get into this. So Mississippi State, guys, averages 22.7 points per game on offense. That would rank 85th in the country. And again, that's with Blake Shapen. They have Michael Van Buren at quarterback now, who is a true freshman. It sucks because Blake Shapen was actually playing really well. That was the bright spot of the team. He had 8 touchdowns and 1 interception on the year. And I think he's underrated. You saw what he did with Jeff Lebby at Baylor. You saw what he did with Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State. He's played very well under that system. 385.7 yards per game for Mississippi State. That's 59th in the country. 5.2 yards per play, which is 82nd. So not very good on a play-per-play basis. And then third down percentage, this is actually where they're pretty good. They're pretty good at converting third downs. 45.45%. That is 32nd in the country. Red zone scoring, 76.92% of times they've scored in the red zone. That is 104th. So not very good in red zone. That's what's kind of weird. Usually red zone and third down is usually at least correlates somewhat. That doesn't correlate at all. And maybe the reds or their third down will go down or the red zone will go up. Who knows? Rush yards per game. They average 110 rush yards per game. That is 100th in the country. So not very good. Yards per rush is 3 exactly, which is 107th, which is terrible. And again, guys, when I'm reading off these stats, that is out of 133 teams. So 107th is god awful. Completion percentage, in the passing game on offense is 64.71%. That is 41st in the country. Most of that is because of Blake Shapen, who was playing well. Passing yards per game is 275.7. That is 27th. Yards per pass is 8.1, which is 34th. And sack percentage, which is the amount of times you're sacked. Let's say you have 100 dropbacks. They are sacked 9.73% of the time. So they're getting sacked once every 10 plays, which is abysmal. It's 120th in the country out of 130 teams or 133 teams, which I will say, looking at some of those stats, Blake Shapen was playing behind a bad offensive line and producing. Like, I'm going to be honest, if Blake Shapen was on like Michigan or honestly Oklahoma, they would be a better football team. They really would. Like, Blake Shapen was having a good year. Defensively, this is where it gets really bad for Mississippi State. Yards per game allowed rushing on defense, 247. That is 126th in the country. Yards per rush, 5.4, 103rd in the country. Now we get into passing. And this is just, I couldn't believe when I saw this. Completion percentage allowed on defense, 77.63%. 77.63%. Guys, if you look at the completion percentage in the history of college football, that'd be like a top 15 number. They're basically allowing a top 15 number on the schedule they played, which hasn't been good. You've played Florida, who Graham Mertz is effective passing. DJ Lagway was 7 of 7, by the way. But then you played Toledo, you played Eastern Kentucky, you played bad teams, and you're allowing 77.63% completion percentage. That is, in fact, the worst in the country. I need to check who was 132nd, because I bet they're like 4 or 5 percentage points better than that. That is abysmal. Passing yards per game allowed, 210.3, which is 67th in the country. Passing yards per pass allowed, 8.3, which is 103rd in the country. And this is where it gets even worse. Sack percentage, like I said, for the offense, well, defense, out of 100 snaps, they're getting a sack percentage of 1.3%, 129th in the country. So for every 10 dropbacks, or every 100 dropbacks, you're getting 1 sack. That is god awful. God awful, guys. That is not good at all. Let's get into Texas's offense and stats and everything like that. I haven't read this yet. I wanted to wait until 4 games got in. I think that's a decent sample size. Now, is the competition great? No, but I still want to get into it. Texas on offense is averaging 47.5 points per game, which is 7th in the country. Yards per game is 511.3, which is 8th in the country. Yards per play is 7, which is 15th in the country. They've just been great offensively. They really have. I think this is Sark's best game planning, and I think it's the best execution Texas has had under Steve Sarkisian, just in general, since the early years of Mac Brown, execution-wise. Third down percentage is 50.98%, 15th in the country. And red zone, guys, this is what excites me. I said if they could be between 20 and 30 in the red zone, which if they just continue what they're doing, they will be. Everyone's stats are a little bit inflated right now, but red zone scoring is 93.75% of the time they are scoring in the red zone, which is 36th in the country. If they had that at the end of the year, it's number 1. It wouldn't be close. I expect them to be between 20 and 30 at the end of the year. They've done very well at executing in the red zone. The offensive line, which is the best in the country, obviously helped that a lot. And this is where I want to see Texas get better. Rushing offense. Let's get into that. Rushing offense, rush yards per game, 189.8 rush yards per game. That is 36th in the country. I would like that to be a little bit better. And this I'd especially like to be a little bit better. Rush yards per play is 4.7, which is 49th in the country. I would like to be in the top 35 for both of those at the end of the year. If that is the case, if that is the top 35 and we maintain everything else, I think Texas wins the national championship. But the rushing game just has to be a tad bit better. It doesn't have to be a lot bit better. It has to be a tad bit better because we have the best offensive line. We have the best quarterback. We should be able to run the ball a little bit better, in my opinion. Passing 68.46% completion percentage. That is 17th in the country. Passing yards per game, 321.5. That is 12th in the country. Yards per pass for Texas is 9.9, which is fantastic. That is 13th in the country. QB sack percentage is 2.26%. That is 20th in the country. And again, let's just show you for reference, Mississippi State, which is a terrible team, 9.73% sack, which is 120th. So they're basically getting sacked 4 times more than Texas is. Texas should be able to get after it. I want to say when we get into what I believe Texas should do in this game, we'll talk about that. Defense has been phenomenal, better than I thought. I thought they'd be in the top 35 range. And they've been better than that. Rushing yards per game, 95.8, 20th in the country. Yards per rush, 3.2, 30th in the country. That is basically what I said for that, by the way. When rushing, I said we'll be at still a top 25 to 35 unit. I thought we wouldn't do what we did last year, but we would do what we did 2 years ago because we still have pros. And we had pros 2 years ago with Mora Ojimo and Keandre Coburn, and I thought that's the type of production we'd get with this group. Passing opponent completion percentage 59.82%. That is 54th in the country, which is shocking. I think if that number stays about that, it'd be way better. Yards per pass. This is phenomenal. 4.1. That is 3rd in the country. Yards per game, 116 yards per game, which is 6th in the country. Sack percentage is 5.08%, which is 76th. That needs to be better as well. So getting to the quarterback on defense needs to be a little bit better, and rushing on offense needs to be a bit better. But other than that, those are the 2 nits I have to pick about this Texas defense and offense. They've been phenomenal. Now let's get into Mississippi State. Like I said, Blake Shapen was playing well. 68.5% completion percentage, 978 yards on the year, 8 touchdowns, 1 interception. He hurt his shoulder, unfortunately. He will be out for the year. It sucks to see. I've always liked him. I've always thought he was underrated. He had a down year at Baylor last year, but 2 years ago had a good year and then was having a great year for a really bad team. It wouldn't shock me if he does get the ability to redshirt, if he transfers somewhere and actually has an even better year with someone else, or maybe he believes in Jeff Lebby. We'll have to see, because I don't. I personally do not believe in Jeff Lebby long-term at Mississippi State. True freshman Michael Van Buren will be the main quarterback for them unless something happens. Definitely more of an athlete, can get out in space, make some things happen. 7 of 13 on the year, 53.8% completion percentage, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I think Mississippi State's going to have to try to run the ball. And honestly, I mean, Texas is really good in the running and passing game defensively. So pick your poison there. It's going to be interesting how they do running the ball. Rushing wise, Devon Booth, Johnny Daniels, and Kevon Lee are the 3 main running backs. You're getting Devon Booth is only averaging 3.7 yards per carry. Johnny Daniels is 4.9. Kevon Lee is 4.8. Kevon Lee has been, honestly, to my eyes, has been their best running back. Johnny Daniels does have the more yards total at 158 yards, but I think Kevon Lee has been the best running back overall, and I think they should use him more. You saw him pop off versus Florida a little bit. Receiving, you'll notice this name. He was a upper 4-star or 5-star recruit, depending on the service. Kevin Coleman Jr. came in from Jacksonville State and Louisville. He's the transfer. 22 receptions, 287 yards, 13 yards per catch with 3 touchdowns. Honestly, this is the one guy on Mississippi State's entire team. I take that back. Mississippi State probably has 2 to 3 guys that can play decent amount of Texas. I think this is one of them. I like Kevin Coleman a lot. I think he's a good player. I think it's going to be interesting how they use him in this game, how to get him the football, because I don't think they're going to have very much time to throw. And guys, I'm going to be straight up honest with you. It would not shock me in this game if Jeff Lebby takes a series or 2, and if it ends up being 14-0 after the first couple series, just packs it in and runs the ball the whole game, not to get anyone hurt, because that's how bad this Mississippi State team is. Jordan Mosley has 202 yards, 15.5 yards per catch, and 2 touchdowns. And then Mario Craver, who had a pretty good game versus Florida, 8 catches, 192 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Creed Whitmore at tight end. I remember talking about him in the offseason. He's a pretty good tight end. Not great, but pretty good. 4 receptions for 65 yards. There's just not a lot to write home about. I like Kevin Coleman. I like Kevon Lee at the running back. But then without Blake Shapen, I just don't see how they put up many points in this game. I think it's going to be a struggle fest offensively for this team. It was going to be hard with Blake Shapen. It's going to be extra hard without him. I think you're going to have to rely on the ground game. I think you're going to have to get somewhat gimmicky with Michael Van Buren running the ball as well. I think you'll probably see some trick plays from Mississippi State in this game. And then that Jeff Lebby offense, I don't think they're running quite the up-tempo they were at Oklahoma, but I think they should in this game. I think you should get as gimmicky as possible if you're actually trying to compete in this game. If you're not, you might as well just run the ball 50 to 60 times, get out of there with no injuries, and call it a day. But we'll see what they decide to do. On the defensive side of the ball, there's only one name to talk about. It's safety Isaac Smith. He leads the team in tackles, 51 tackles, 19 solo tackles. The problem is, guys, he's a safety. And anytime you see 51 tackles and he's your leading tackler, that means you're getting beat and he's having to clean up the mess, especially solo tackles. If he's having 19 solo tackles at the safety position, that is not good. You do not want to see that. This guy's probably going to end up having 120 tackles and like 35 solo tackles. That is good for him, but it's bad for a defense. You don't want to see it. Here's an example overall how bad Mississippi State is on defense. If reading the stats wasn't bad enough, they have 2 sacks on the year as a team and only 13 tackles for loss. Texas has 29 tackles for loss and 7 sacks. Mississippi State is just not a good football team. They're one of the worst football teams I've ever seen in the SEC. I said on the SEC channel that I think Mississippi State is just as bad as like 5 to 6 years ago Vandy was when they were really bad. Pick your worst Vanderbilt team, put them versus this team. This team is very bad. There's a real chance they only win 2 games. I mean, they play UMass. They should win that game. But, guys, if they lose that game, they're 1-11. So they're a really bad football team, and they could lose to UMass. I think UMass has slightly improved from what they usually are, and that would be all-time embarrassing. Losing to Toledo by 24 is bad, but losing to UMass would just take it to another level. So this is a 2-10 team, in my opinion, at best. They're 3-9. Texas should beat the crap out of them. I have Texas winning this game 51-10. I think Texas covers the spread of 38.5 points. I would take the under, though. I don't think this gets over 61.5. I do believe Steve Sarkisian will show mercy to this team, and I do believe at some point Jeff Lebby will just decide to run the football and get out of town without any major injuries in this game, because you do have a whole SEC slate to play, and they play Georgia next. So that's going to be interesting as well. Playing Texas and Georgia, probably 2 of the 3 best SEC teams back-to-back. Now, what I want to see out of Texas in this game, I want to see pressure. We talked about that. Sack percentage allowed on the offensive side of the ball was 9.73%, guys. That is what they allowed on their offense, 9.73%. So teams are getting a pressure of one out of every 10 snaps, you're getting a sack. Texas needs to be at that number to me, guys, in this game versus Mississippi State. They need to be able to get to the quarterback. They should have 4+ sacks in this game, in my opinion. This should be a sack fest. If, I will say this, if Jeff Lebby actually attempts to compete in this game and actually drops back to pass a decent amount of times. If he doesn't, just runs the ball, then I don't expect that. I also expect us to rush the ball well in this game. Like I said, defensively, guys, they allow 247 rushing yards per game, which is 126th in the country. And they allow 5.4 yards per rush, which is 103rd in the country. That is terrible for Mississippi State's defense. We should be able to run the ball better than we have so far this year. We're averaging 4.7 yards per rush and 189 yards rushing per game. The rushing yards per game, I don't care as much about. I'd like to be at the 200 number, but I want to see over 5 yards per carry in this game. Anything less than that is unacceptable. And honestly, if we have anything less for that, I will start to get worried about this running game. And I will only get worried to the fact of winning a national championship. Do I still think we can be a top 4 team when it's all said and done with the exact rushing attack we have now? Yes. But if to win a national championship, we need to be better. And I would like to see 5 yards per carry or more versus this Mississippi State team. So those are the 2 things I'd like to see from Texas. Also, when they do throw the ball, I don't think Michael Van Buren's very accurate. I would like to see an interception or 2 in this game. Malik Muhammad hasn't been tested this much. I'd like to see, hopefully they test him more. Same with Jahdae Barron. Well, he's been tested and he's played phenomenal. I still think he's the highest rated cornerback in the SEC according to Pro Football Focus. But I'd like to see Manny come down with an interception in this game. And that is why I believe Texas will kill Mississippi State. I believe they're going to be able to do most of those things. And I think they win this game 51-10. So again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. I really appreciate you guys being here. I'm here every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. We will talk whatever you guys want to talk about if you put in some comments. So please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Again, use that Amazon link in the comments that Jackson dropped to help out Mark. And catch us on your favorite audio platform if you just want to hear my voice and not look at my face. We're on Spotify, Apple, wherever you can, wherever you listen to stuff, you can probably find it. Amazon as well. So please go over there and check that out. And Mark has a phenomenal show Monday through Friday of the football season. He will take your calls, your comments, your concerns, your questions over there Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern time on the main channel. So go over there and like and subscribe as well. I really appreciate you guys being here for me this week. We will talk about one more thing before I get out of here, and that is the biggest test Texas has left. So going into the season, I thought Texas was going to go 11-1. I thought they'd beat Georgia. I thought they'd lose to Kentucky. If I had to redo my predictions, do I believe Texas beat Georgia at this point? Yes. Now, that will change dramatically what happens this week. They play a top 5 team, no doubt, in Alabama this week at Tuscaloosa. It's going to be interesting how that game turns out. I may change my mind on that. I definitely take back the Kentucky loss. I can't believe I'm about to say that. I said Kentucky was the biggest trap game going into the season. I think I've been slightly wrong on that. I still think they can be a trap game. It's definitely not Florida. They would have been up there for me as well. Arkansas could be, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, after playing Oklahoma and Georgia, is going to be way more difficult than people thought for a couple reasons. You play Oklahoma and Georgia, your adrenaline, your expectations are going to be up here, and then you have to go to Nashville and play Vanderbilt. That stadium is not going to be very full. It's going to be mostly your home fans, and you're going to have all this come down from playing those two top 10 or top 25 teams, top 3 or 4 team in Georgia, probably top at worst 7 or 8 if they do lose to Alabama. You need to take Vanderbilt seriously. Do I think they could actually beat Texas if Texas plays like a B game? No. Could they hang around with Texas if Texas plays a C game? Yes. I think it would take us to have a D or F game, honestly, to lose to Vanderbilt. But I've seen Texas put up their D and F game before, so it would not shock me. Have I seen it much under Steve Sarkisian after his first year? No, I haven't. There's only 1 or 2 games that come to mind. But Vanderbilt does scare me. That I can't believe I'm saying that, but because of when we play them, where we're playing them, it scares me a lot. Arkansas also scares me because, again, we play them on the road. They hate us more than they like themselves, and they hate us way more than we think. We don't even think about them, and they treat that like the biggest rivalry they have, which it is probably the biggest rivalry they have. It's probably bigger than A&M. And Bobby Petrino is a hell of a play caller. That environment will be crazy. We had a guy, I forget his name, but he did a great job. He came on here in the offseason, and he talked about the environment. And he said it's one of the best environments he's ever been a part of with Arkansas and Texas when they came last time. And they killed us, guys. They ran for over 300 yards in that game. They're not going to do that this time. But Taylon Green and Bobby Petrino scare me. Taylon Green has the capability, if he is on, to be a competent or even better than that passer. And then he scares me with his legs. He's a very good athlete. And then Bobby Petrino is one of the best 10 play callers in the country. So it's going to be interesting. I think, obviously, Georgia's our biggest test. But after that, I think I'm going to go Arkansas and Vanderbilt as the 2 underrated games, and then obviously A&M up there as well. Oklahoma obviously will be a test. I'm trying to go under the radar picks here. I don't think Kentucky and Florida represent the test I thought they were going to be, especially Florida. I actually think Florida remaining on our schedule after this game is going to be the easiest game we play because, in my opinion, I think Mississippi State and Florida are the 2 worst teams in the SEC. But those are the biggest tests we have left. Under the radar, like I said, Vanderbilt and Arkansas. The games you know of, Oklahoma, A&M, and Georgia will be big tests, especially since 2 of them are rivalry games. One of them hasn't been played in a decade plus. I fully expect that to be the craziest environment anyone has played in college football this year is the Texas A&M game on the road at College Station. But again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. This has been the 22nd edition of Texas Longhorns here live. You can find me right there on X at MatthewMS97. I really appreciate you guys being here. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. And as always, guys, hook them. We're going to beat Mississippi State 51-10. Take that spread. Take the points. Take your Longhorns. Thank you, guys.